Good morning, students. Welcome to yet another video of Economics Chapter 3 Poverty as a Challenge, Part 3. In the previous class, we learned about poverty line and global poverty trends. Today, we will learn about causes of poverty, anti-poverty measures, and challenges of poverty. With no further ado, let's start today's class. We will start with the first subtopic explaining about causes of poverty. There are multiple reasons that cause poverty. However, in India, the first major factor was the exploitative rule of British. Throughout the process of colonizing India, by taking away the raw materials from our country at a lesser price and selling it back to India at a very high price, this led to the shutdown of indigenous factories and mills in India, and India became heavily dependent. India went through a long phase of low economic development during colonial rule. The policies of the colonial government ruined traditional handicrafts and discouraged development of industries like textiles. Finally, India achieved independence but remained as a backward country from a very prosperous country to an agricultural backward country. So this was the historical reason for the cause of poverty. Then another reason is explaining about the unequal and irregular success of Green Revolution. This is also another cause of poverty. With the spread of irrigation and the Green Revolution, many job opportunities were created in the agricultural sector, especially in the post-independence period, specifically in 1960s. But the effect was limited to only some parts of India. So, however, this was not sufficient to provide job opportunities for all job seekers. So this resulted in irregular, low-paying employment. So the people who are migrated from the villages to the nearby towns, they were unable to find proper jobs. They were unable to find proper jobs in cities. So when they are unable to find proper jobs in cities, many people, they started working as rickshaw pullers, vendors, construction workers, domestic servants, and so on. So all these jobs is having very less income or else irregular income. So the people could not afford expensive housing. So they started living in slums on the outskirts of the cities. And the problems of poverty, largely a rural phenomenon, it also became the feature of the urban sector. So they got only limited opportunities. So that again aggravated the poverty even in the urban areas. The next cause for poverty is unequal distribution of resources. Although national income of India has been increasing since 1951, it was not properly distributed among different sections of the society. A large proportion of increased income has been pocketed by a few rich. For example, 60% of the land was occupied by top 10%, that is by the rich people. Balance 40% of the land distributed between the rest 90% of the population. So the result is the rich people will become more rich and a majority of people live below the poverty line. The next cause for poverty is less productivity in agricultural sector. We all know that India is an agrarian economy. Majority of the people are dependent on the agricultural sector. So in agricultural sector, the productivity level is very low due to subdivided and fragmented holdings, lack of capital, or else use of traditional methods of cultivation, and so on. So because of all these reasons, the people who are dependent exclusively on the agricultural sector will remain as poor. So this is also another prominent cause of poverty in India. The another cause of poverty is low rate of economic development. So in the first point itself, we learned that the British rule in India resulted in low economic growth. So in India, the rate of economic development is very low than the required level. Therefore, there persists a gap between the level of availability and requirements of goods and services. And the net result is poverty. Another prominent cause for poverty is increase in the rate of rising population. In the last 45 years, the population has increased at the whopping rate of 2.2% per annum. An average of approximate 17 million people are added every year to the population, which increased or else which raises the demand for consumption goods considerably. It means the demand of food grains and all the consumer goods increased to a great extent. And also the rise of population resulted in heavy pressure on land and unemployment. So the another associated cause of poverty which is related to the rise in population is lack of job opportunities or unemployment. The rise in population resulted in unemployment. Another important factor for the incidence of high poverty in India is the high degree of unemployment as well as underemployment. The job seekers are increasing at a higher rate than the increase in the employment opportunities. And we don't have sufficient industries also to accommodate the increased population. So unemployment is also a major cause for poverty. Now let's move on to the next cause of poverty, that is indebtedness. Borrowing by the poor leading them to indebtedness. Small farmers needed money to buy agricultural inputs like seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, and so on. So they used to borrow money, and due to certain reasons, maybe like failure of crops or else drought or else such sorts of unforeseen reasons, they will not be able to repay the loan amount. So that results in poverty. And thus the farmers will end up in debt trap. So these are the prominent causes of poverty. Now let's move on to the final factor of poverty, that is in general the social factors. Various social factors, like apart from all the main reasons which we discussed here, even social factors are also responsible for poverty. That is like caste system, joint family system, religious beliefs, law of inheritance, and so on. All these have blocked the path of economic development. Thus, poverty acts as a vicious circle. Now, let's move on to the next topic, explaining about the anti-poverty measures by the government. It means what are the measures taken by the government, the schemes taken by the government to eradicate poverty. Here you can see certain measures which is taken by the government to eradicate poverty. Here you can see all the schemes. We need to learn all these schemes slightly in detail. So the best way for anti-poverty measure is to provide employment that results in economic growth. So the best way to anti-poverty measure is to provide employment opportunities to the people. So when we give employment opportunities, automatically that results in the economic growth of our country. So thus people will come out of the poverty trap. So better education, better agricultural facilities, and better investment in human resource is required. As a result, many anti-poverty programs were started by the government. Now let's learn few of the prominent anti-poverty measures in detail. Removal of poverty is one of the major objective of the Indian developmental strategy. The current government strategy of poverty alleviation is based on two planks. That is, one is promotion of economic growth, and second is targeted anti-poverty programs. So the first and the foremost anti-poverty program which is specified here is National Food for Work Program, NFWP. This particular program was launched in the year 2004. And this program was launched by the Minister of Rural Development, Central Government on November 14th, 2004 in 150 of most backward districts of India with the objective of supplementary wage employment. The progress or the program is open for all Indian poor people who are prepared to do manual unskilled labor work and are in the need of wage employment. The second program here is explaining about Prime Minister Rozgar Yojana. Prime Minister Rozgar Yojana, it was a scheme, it was an anti-poverty measure started in the year 1993. Its aim is to create self-employment opportunities for the educated, unemployed youth in rural areas and small towns. Next is explaining about Rural Employment Generation Program, REGP. It was launched in the year 1995. It aims at creating self-employment opportunities in rural areas as well as in urban areas. A target of creating 25 lakh new jobs has been set for the program under the 10th five-year plan. Next here it is explaining about Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarozgar Yojana. This particular program was launched in the year 1999. The program aims at bringing to assist the poor families above the poverty line by organizing them in self-help groups through bank credit and government subsidy. And the next program is explaining about Pradhan Mantri Gramodaya Yojana. It was launched in the year 2000. This program aimed at creating and improving basic services like primary health, primary education, rural shelter, rural water, and rural electrification. The next scheme is explaining about Antyodaya Anna Yojana. Antyodaya Anna Yojana was launched in December 2000. The main objective of the scheme is to ensure food security and to create hunger-free India. Antyodaya Anna Yojana scheme covers the poorest of the poor in India by supplying food as well as other important commodities for their daily needs at subsidized rates. That's all about Antyodaya Anna Yojana. So these are some of the important anti-poverty measures undertaken by the government. Now let's move on to the last subtopic of this chapter, explaining about the challenges ahead. Poverty has certainly declined in India. However, despite of the measures that have taken place, we have still many challenges. That is, providing healthcare facilities to each and every person at an affordable price. Second is providing free and compulsory education, not only for the primary and the secondary, but also for college education. The third is giving job opportunities and security for all. Then the next is bringing gender equality, and above all, dignity for poor is the main aim. And increasing empowerment of women and the weaker sections of the society. So we will have to do something special to fight against the wide regional disparities. We must broaden the definition of poverty from a minimum subsistence level of living to a reasonable level of living. Poverty reduction is expected to make better progress in the next 10 to 15 years. This would be possible when we overcome the above said challenges. With this, we covered economics chapter 3, poverty as a challenge. Here in this slide, you can see a quote said by Nelson Mandela. Poverty is not an accident like slavery and apartheid. It is man-made and can be removed by the actions of human beings. Now let's have a quick recap of today's class. Today we learned from the causes of poverty. We learned that there are various reasons for widespread poverty in India. First, we learned about the British rule. Under British rule, India had a low level of economic development. New policies of the colonial government ruined traditional handicrafts and discouraged development of industries, specifically textile industry. Low rate of growth and an increase in population that together made the growth rate of per capita income very low. With the spread of irrigation and the green revolution, many job opportunities were created in the agricultural sector. However, these were not enough to absorb all the job seekers. Another feature of high poverty rates has been the huge income inequalities. One of the major reasons for this is the unequal distribution of land and other resources. In India, lack of land resources has been one of the major cause of poverty in India. But proper implementation of policy could have improved the lives of millions of rural population. Then small farmers needed money to buy agricultural inputs like seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, and so on. So they used to borrow money and they were unable to repay the loan. So they end up in debt trap. And finally, we learned about the social factors, like various social factors like caste system, joint family system, religious beliefs, law of inheritance and so on have blocked the path of economic development. So thus poverty act as a vicious cycle. Then we learned about the anti-poverty measures. Here we learned about the current anti-poverty schemes, which is started by our government. So here we learned that the current anti-poverty scheme is divided into two parts, that is promotion of economic growth and then targeted anti-poverty programs. And we learned about the few schemes which are formulated to affect poverty poverty directly or indirectly, or else we learned about few schemes which eradicate poverty. They are Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Act, and next we learned about the Prime Minister Rozgar Yojana, followed by Rural Employment Generation Program. Then we learned about Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarozgar Yojana and Pradhan Mantri Gramodaya Yojana and Antyodaya Anna Yojana. So these are the anti-poverty measures taken by our government. And finally, we learned about the challenges ahead. In India, poverty has certainly declined, but it still remains like few factors as a challenge. And we can eradicate poverty from our country if we achieve higher economic growth, increasing stress on universal free elementary education, as well as giving free education even in the college level, declining population growth, increasing empowerment of the women and economically weaker sections of the society. So we can achieve a poverty-free India when we overcome these challenges. So if you have any doubts related to today's class, or else any doubts related to this chapter, poverty as a challenge, you can mail at dmcsonlinequeries@gmail.com. Thank you, students. Have a good day ahead.